1. I experienced my first glitch today. So my restaurant closed down due to coronavirus, and my boyfriend and I were out grocery shopping. We stopped by my restaurant to grab my last paycheck, which is across a bridge from my town into the next. The bridge is very large. When I go for runs, it takes me about 5 minutes running to get across. Right when you get onto the bridge, there's a stoplight. We were at the stoplight when a woman started crossing the street wearing a medical mask. Now this was noticeable to us because we just got back yesterday from being in Florida for 2 weeks, and nobody there had been wearing protective masks yet, as things have only gotten bad in the past couple of days and nothing is bad there yet. So I turn to my boyfriend and say, "Hey look, people are wearing masks here, we should look for some." We watched her cross the street, talking about her mask, and how we should start protecting ourselves better. As she walked by, I noticed her very distinctive appearance. She was an Asian woman wearing a grey coat, bright white mask, bright blue denim pants, not jeans, bright white shoes, gold-rimmed glasses, and a neon pink beanie. I even commented on her beanie to my boyfriend, saying I've never seen something so bright. She continues to walk the opposite way we were driving. So we continued driving and decided to stop at the CVS about 1.5 miles down the road. There is no traffic because of the recent restaurant and university closures in Ohio, so we get there pretty quickly. We were trying to be quick in the CVS to see if they have masks, hand sanitizer, and other cleaning supplies, because the grocery store where we were at was closed. I walk into the store and the same woman is standing in the aisle of cleaning supplies. I went there. I didn't stop in another aisle. I immediately freaked out and grabbed my boyfriend. We both swear it was the same girl. She had the same clothes and appearance as before. I have no idea how she got there so fast. There was no buses running. I even checked the bus schedule because I was so freaked out. We literally watched her walk the other way of us driving, and she somehow beat us to CVS. We didn't hit any red lights or anything. Can anyone explain this? 2. So I moved out of my home state to one only a few states over to live with some friends and get a much-needed change of scenery. It was a 3-bedroom apartment in a giant old house that had cut each floor into single apartments. It was really old, really beautiful, and really creepy. If you stand in the kitchen, you can see directly into all 3 bedrooms, but not the bathroom. Layout is key to the story. Each room had a pretty large closet, as did the bathroom, but it wasn't a huge apartment by any means. If you opened the front door, you'd put directly into the kitchen. Straight in front of you, if you kept walking, would be my room. If you went slightly left, you'd be in the 2nd bedroom. If you turned directly left, you'd be in the 3rd bedroom, which also led to the washroom and bathroom. We lived in the 3rd apartment out of 4. Basement unit, 1st floor, 2nd floor, and 3rd floor. Every apartment had people living in it except the one above us. It was a very tall building rather than a wide one, if that makes sense. Anyways, so one night the 2 friends I lived with went out to a bar. This was maybe the 2nd night I was there, and although I wanted to explore my new town, I was exhausted and decided to stay in. They left around midnight, and I went directly to bed. They arrived back home around 2:30 a.m. and texted me from outside saying they were back and to unlock the door. I texted back and replied that I would. I don't remember sending this text, but they showed me the next day to verify that I had. Anyways, I did not unlock the door, and since I'm epileptic, and I wouldn't answer the door knocks, they grew increasingly concerned, thinking I had a seizure. One of my roommates finally managed to bust out the bottom panel of the old and very sturdy door and reached up to the handle to unlock it. They opened the door and went directly to my room. I wasn't in bed. They started to panic more. I wasn't in the bathroom. So they started looking everywhere a 5'2" and 100-pound female could possibly be. Under beds, in closets, under large clothes piles, even in cabinets. They literally searched every single inch of the apartment, and met back in the kitchen after researching the rooms a 2nd and 3rd time. They were in the kitchen, hands in their heads, and their backs turned to the 2nd bedroom, discussing what to do next. Should they canvass the neighborhood once before calling the police? They were almost to tears when I walked up behind them, and slightly to the left out of my room, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and dreamily asking, "What's wrong with you guys?" They both jumped, literally jumped almost out of their skins, and started screaming, "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer when we knocked or were calling your name?" Confused, I told them that I didn't hear any knocks or anyone calling my name. I had just woken up because I heard talking outside of my bedroom and went to see how your night went. I told them I think I was asleep in my bed, right? They told me the whole story, from the text until the moment I literally scared the shit out of them. They checked my bedroom windows, and all three were locked, and the screens were also locked and in no way tampered with. You couldn't get on the roof without removing the screens, a noisy and generally two-person process, which would have left the screens on the floor, and they would have noticed those in their search. I couldn't remember sending the text, or where I had been. I thought I had been in bed. I thought I had been asleep. I turned around to look in my room, and realized my roommate had my blankets in his hand, confused. He had taken them off my bed during the search, afraid I was just curled up underneath them. All I remember is going to bed and waking up to their talking quietly outside my door. I did remember one more key factor. The walk from my bed to where they were standing was maybe 10 footsteps. I remember when I was walking to them, it seemed like I was walking down a very long hallway. There isn't one there, and I could see light at the end of them, but I couldn't make them out until I reached out and touched them. That part scares me a lot. So where was I? To this day, about 3 years later, I still have no further memory of that night. I hadn't drank or anything before bed. Seriously, where the fuck was I? 3. So a lot of strange things happened to me in my life. But I'll tell you about what happened a couple months ago. My husband and I went on our honeymoon on a very small island in Thailand. We had a safe in the room of the villa we were renting, and we put all of our passports and dollars in it. One day in the morning, my husband took some dollars to change them into Thai money, around $200. We went to change the money, and when we came back home that night, my husband put the money we had left, around $150 of Thai money, back in the safe because we didn't need it. I saw him do that, and I saw him close back the safe. The next day, he was feeling very sick in the morning and decided to go buy something at the pharmacy. So he went, and around 10 minutes later he came back and told me he forgot to take money. So I opened the closet, and I see the safe wide open. I wonder why is the safe wide open, and when I look for the Thai money there is none. But the passports and all the dollars are in place. Neither of us opened the safe because we were literally always together, and we had no reason to open it at night anyway. The day before, after we put the money in the safe, we sat at the pool outside to chill a little bit, and we went to sleep. But if someone would have entered while we were outside, we would certainly have heard it. There was barely anything around the house except one neighbor house. It was a really quiet place. So I told my husband about the open safe, and we were both very confused. We looked all over the house for the money, but we didn't find it. If thieves actually got inside the house, how did they open this safe without breaking it? How did they even get in the house? And most importantly, why didn't they take all the dollars as well? We still don't know what happened to this money, and why the safe was open. 4. When I was younger, my family would do a school run with my younger siblings, and leave me in the house and then come back for me and take me to my high school, which was further away. During this time, there is no way anyone else would be in the house unless they were off school. And I know this day there was no one here. I knew they would be gone for around 10 minutes, so I decided to go to the kitchen and get myself a snack before I left. As I open the fridge, I hear the sound of something small falling on the tiled flooring. I look next to me, and it's a pebble. The exact same that we have in our back garden. Sort of light brown color and quite unique. It confused me for a lot of reasons, but the main one was probably that I knew it didn't come from the fridge, since it was not in the right place for that. And if it came from any of the other cabinets or shelves, it would have fallen onto a counter surface, not the floor. At this point I'm sort of freaked out, but I'm still tired, and just assume there's an explanation that I'll find later. Since I feel a little uneasy, I remember standing in my doorway to the kitchen, since it made me feel more surrounded, and less likely to be hit with pebbles, I guess. I'm not really sure of the logic, I just know I ate my food in the doorframe. As I'm looking through the kitchen to the window, sort of spaced out, waiting to be picked up by my parent, there's a loud sort of crashing sound that hurts my ears, and about 25 to 30 of the same unique pebbles fall straight from the ceiling. I know for a fact that they weren't thrown since there was no angle on them. Straight down through the ceiling and crash onto the floor, all throughout the kitchen. I just sort of stare at them and don't pick any up. I look at the ceiling to see what could have happened, but it's just a normal ceiling. No holes. And the lights are built into it, so there's no way there were cracks or anything for them to fall through. About 2 minutes after this, my stepmom comes home and walks straight into the kitchen. She just blankly looks at the pebbles and tries to question me about them, and I say exactly what happened. I don't think she doubted me, because why would she think I dumped a load of pebbles in our nice kitchen? She helped me pick them up, and we just kind of agreed that I was telling the truth, and it was weird, but we haven't talked about it since. I remembered a few years ago I brought it up to her, and she didn't seem to remember, but I don't think she really tried that hard. I doubt anyone has a similar experience to this, since it's quite obscure, but any ideas, I guess? 5. So, living at the lighthouse. As it was about 2.5 kilometers from any other property, we never locked the door. As it was on the beach, my friends would come and stay regularly so we could go surfing. Anyway, my mom came into my bedroom one morning and says, there's this strange guy in the lounge room. He's young, but I don't know him. I, being tired, said, it's probably just X or Y or Z who needed a place to sleep. And I rolled over to go back to sleep. My mom, being persistent, prodded me much harder this time and said, no, I really don't know this guy. Reluctantly, I got up and peered into the lounge room, and to my horror, I didn't know the guy either. So this guy was sitting in jeans, shirtless, sitting on the floor with his back against the lounge, watching TV and smoking a cigarette, with keys and items sitting beside him. Looked quite relaxed. He was young, about 20, long disheveled hair. Needed a bath, small frame. He didn't see us looking at him, so we decided to get my father. Not that he could do anything, as he was 70-odd at the time. Dad walked into the lounge room and said, "Hey mate, how's things?" Guy looked up, smiled and said, "All good." Then continued to watch TV, kind of ignoring Dad. Anyway, after back and forth with the guy, Dad asked, "What's your name?" Guy said, I don't know." Then we all freaked out and thought, "Oh, we have a crazy!" And after a while we realized he had escaped from the mental hospital in town. Dad figured this out by looking at his belongings and doing some basic Sherlocking. He called the hospital and said, "Oh, are you missing XYZ?" And they said, "Oh yes, is that where he is? We'll send someone to collect him." Although this is freaky, as we have a guy in our house for God knows how long and he is mentally unstable. The freakiest thing was, though, just before the cavalry arrived, Dad was engaging in conversation with him. It was Mum, Dad, me, and this guy all standing in the lounge room. Calm conversation, although strange at times. Dad asked him, "So why did you come here in particular?" And the guy said, and I will never forget it, "Oh, the light drew me to this place in this dimension. And I also know Rob," while pointing to a photo on the wall of me, not actually to me. Photo was recent. I have never met this guy in my life, but he knew my name and pointed to a photo of me. No other items in the house were disturbed for him to find out who it was, etc. No identifying information around to identify my name and that the picture was of me. As he was crazy and talking about dimensions, could we have met in another dimension? Note, we always locked the door after this incident. 6. Anne and Sophie were two of my neighbors when I was in college, living off campus. My best friend and I moved into the apartment next door, and we would exchange small talk with Anne and Sophie, and sometimes hand one another misdelivered mail. One night, a few months after we moved in, they invited my friend and I over for dinner. We had a lovely dinner with them. They told us beautiful stories about their travels. After dinner, we all went into the kitchen with Anne, who cut us huge slices of homemade bread, and Sophie drizzled honey on them for us, that she warmed in a small clay pot in her oven. Their little brown dog was underfoot, wagging his tail and trying to jump up. Apparently he loved the homemade bread. "He can't have any. We know he's cute. He will beg, but don't cave. He can't have any," Annie said affectionately, petting the dog. Sophie laughed and said, "Yeah, folks, this is Stanley. He's part beagle, and he likes to just sleep in our bed until he smells this bread, and then he wants to be here." My friend loves dogs, and she just flopped right onto the floor with Stanley. They cuddled while Anne played some guitar. We drank a glass of wine, and then, as it was getting late, we thanked our hostesses and left. As we were walking out the door, my friend and I both stepped down to pet cute little Stanley and say goodbye to him. Anne and I saw each other the very next day, as we both arrived at our front doors after work. I said hello, and she smiled big and waved and went into her apartment, and I went into mine. My friend and I were super busy with school over the next week, though we saw Anne and Sophie arm in arm walking one afternoon out front, and we invited them to our place for dinner that weekend. They agreed happily, and then talked a bit to us and laughed as it started to rain, and we all went hastily inside our apartments, waving and saying goodbye to them. That Friday, my friend and I were so looking forward to Anne and Sophie's visit on Saturday. We were at the local market getting food and planning the meal. We looked up, and who was there but Anne, picking up some apples. We said hi to Anne, and she stopped and looked at us. Sophie then came running up, and my friend said, "Sophie, Anne, we were just here planning dinner. We wanted to tell you to bring little Stanley too." Sophie's smile faded. She and Anne stood still, staring at us. Anne said, "How do you know our names?" My friend and I giggle-laughed. Anne always was the one with a kind of serious sort of off humor. We quickly realized she was not joking. "I asked you, how do you know our names?" She repeated her question, this time forcefully. I interjected this time because my friend was turning beet red and stammering. "What do you mean, Anne? We were just at your house the other day, in your kitchen, sharing bread, petting your little dog Stanley, listening to you play guitar. We live next door to you." Sophie glared at us and said, "I've never spoken to either of you before today. Sophie is my name, Anne is hers. And we do live next door to you. We've seen you walking out of your place, but we've never had you in our home." Anne shook her head in agreement. Anne said flatly, "We don't have a dog. We don't have a dog named Stanley." They both turned around as I continued to describe the inside of their home and their dog. They ignored me and paid for their groceries and left the store. We saw them in passing after that, and they would say an awkward hi in passing, but it was just a plain stranger greeting, nothing like before. It was all civil, curt, brief. We were strangers. And we never again saw Stanley. We wondered later if they didn't have Stanley on the lease, if they were afraid the landlord would find out because we knew about him, or if they both suffered from mental illness, or forgot us and the gathering we had, or had done a drug that fried their brain. They were not drug users, though, that we knew of. Our apartment was pet-friendly. They were older women, stable, and with professional jobs. Not into substances except for the rare glass of good red wine. None of it made sense. Unless it was a glitch in the Matrix. Where was little Stanley? 7. During my last couple of years of high school, we went on a class trip to a haunted corn maze during the month of October. Towards the end of the trip, when it was starting to get dark, my friend and I were wandering around the parking lot when I noticed one of those big charter-type buses. It was huge, black, said time in big letters on the side, and it had really big windows that anyone could easily see into. The strangest part was what we saw on the inside. There were chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and there were tables and chairs like you would see at a banquet, instead of regular bus seats. Nobody was getting on or off, and everyone inside was wearing grey. It almost looked like what a dining car and a train would look like, except the tables were round. The bus just sat in the parking lot the entire time, not moving, nobody getting off, etc. My husband seems to think that the bus was part of the corn maze, but I honestly don't think so. Aside from the actual maze, there was a haunted laser tag building at the place that served food and drinks. Both were in barns, so a fancy charter bus really wouldn't make sense with the theme. Besides, it wasn't scary, just weird. My first thought was maybe it was some kind of tour bus, but the maze in a really rural area, and no cities around, to my knowledge. And what kind of tour would take people to a corn maze in the middle of nowhere? Why would the company be called Time? Why would everyone on said tour be required to wear grey? Why chandeliers on a bus? I wasn't under the influence of anything, wasn't sleep-deprived or anything like that. I remember very clearly what I saw. I also remember feeling like I shouldn't get too close. But we did get close enough to see what was going on inside by hiding behind cars and peering over. I don't know what we thought the consequences of getting caught if we got too close were. 8. So I'll start by saying that I found the best pair of jeans at a clothing store. Not the pair specifically were perfect, more so the style and size. Loved them. Loved them so much I decided to go online and order a couple new pairs. Same style and cut and size, but in a different design, if that makes sense. Think instead of getting the same light blue jeans, I got the same style in a dark blue, distressed differently, etc. When looking online, it was hard to see the pictures specifically, so I ended up ordering the same pair of jeans I already had, along with another pair in dark blue denim. Whoops, no big deal. I did love this specific pair, and as such, I had worn down the old pair, so I was content with having 2 pairs of the exact jeans. It's worth mentioning that both pairs of jeans came in intentionally distressed sort of style, with fabric tears here and there. There specifically was a larger tear on the knee, the older pair being worn had more tear on the knee rip open, and essentially become a big hole on the knee. No big deal. Still looked cute, still comfy. This is how I distinguished between the new jeans and old jeans. Hopefully all this makes sense so far. Cut to earlier today. I need to go to the store for a few essentials and decide to wear jeans instead of sweats. My new pair of jeans were on the floor of my bathroom, and I planned on wearing them. However, I had unfortunately thrown a damp towel on them, and they didn't smell too great. Dang. They failed the sniff test. I grabbed my laundry basket of freshly washed clothes to find some different pants, and found the other pair of jeans. I wasn't too fond of wearing the old ones, since I was wary of tearing the hole on the knee even more, but desperate times called for desperate measures. I began to turn them inside out and was feeling slightly disappointed about the new jeans being unwearable, when I realized the jeans I had just grabbed did not have a hole in the knee. By all logic, the jeans on my bathroom floor had the knee intact, which made them the new jeans. By process of elimination, these should be the old jeans and, by all accounts, should have a hole on the right knee. But they didn't. I did a double take, but thought, perhaps I have such an exact taste in jeans that I have similar jeans and never realized it. I laid both pairs out of my bed and began examining them. They both had the same style and size on the inside. Both had the exact same color and distress rips on them. They were the exact pair of jeans, but one should be ripped up more. I felt a little off and went digging through my dresser. Lo and behold, I pulled out a third pair of jeans. These ones with a hole in the right knee, as there should be. These were the old jeans. I laid all of them out on my bed and just stared at them. I'll be the first to admit I can be an airhead at times, and my memory isn't always the best, but I swear on everything I know that I only had 2 pairs of the same jeans. That's why when I saw the pair on the bathroom floor, I instinctively knew the next pair of jeans I picked up would be ripped, but they weren't. Just to check my craziness, I looked online at past orders through the store. Sure enough, I've only ever bought 1 pair of these jeans online. And after the first initial trip to the physical store, I never went back since it's an hour and a half away. And buying online was easier since I knew the correct size and style to get. Sure, it's completely possible that I happened to go to the store, saw the jeans, and bought them a 3rd time, even though I already made that mistake once with buying a 2nd pair, and can honestly believe I wouldn't do it again. But the store and the town it is in is so out of the way that I never go there, so I just can't see that happening. 9. I have experienced this phenomenon on a weekly basis throughout my life, so I will mention just a few. I'm going to mark them with a dot at the beginning, as they are not a continuous story, but a bunch of random incidents throughout my life. I bought new Adidas trainers, had them for literally only 1 day before they had gone into a loop. I took them off after coming home, put them in line with all the other shoes. The next morning they were gone. My husband and I turned the flat upside down. Nope, never seen them again. Now this incident happened when my husband was away for the week, and I was home all alone. It's Saturday morning. I go to the bathroom after waking up, and there's a pregnancy test, open but unused, right next to the toilet on the floor. I have never bought a pregnancy test in my life, and there's no way that someone else put it there. As I said, I was home alone for about a week then. Put a whole bunch of laundry in the washing machine. When taking it out, there's only 1 pair of trousers, so I'm like, WTF? The whole bunch of laundry is still upstairs in the basket? I had an EHO visit at work, was a bar manager at the time, and they required the safety diary, which has always been on the same spot on the same shelf for years. Nope, could not find it. Got in shit, obviously, as I was accused of losing it. Spent the whole day looking for it, not just me but 2 other work colleagues. We even looked inside of the fridges like complete idiots, and nothing. The next day I was first at work. No one there yet. Went into my office, replied to some emails, finished my coffee, and decided to have 1 more. Went to the bar, made myself a coffee, went back to my office, and bingo, there's the safety diary. And it's literally laying on the keyboard in front of the PC I was just using. And mind you, there's still no one in the building. I literally thought this must have been a fucking joke now. And when I reported this to the main head office, that the diary literally appeared on my desk, they thought unpleasant things. Disorganized and messy. Walking home from work, cut through this park. There are no trees around, just a long pavement cutting through this meadow, and there's a guy walking towards me about 5 yards away. Now, I looked down for a split second, as I thought my shoelace got undone. Looked back up, and puff, the guy was gone, and there was absolutely nowhere he could turn or hide. Went for a cigarette outside of our house. I used to leave my lighter, personal one, Zippo, on this rocky fence that was connected to our house. Put it back there, went back in, and my husband literally passed, saying he was going for one too. Now, he used to go and smoke about 10 yards down by this canal. When he got back, he was like, "You went all the way down to the canal for a smoke? You always smoke just by the door." I said, "No, of course not," and he just looked at me, raising his eyebrows, and said, "Well, I just found your lighter down there, thought you lost it." My watch had disappeared about 10 times. I always leave it on my bedside table. Woke up in the morning and the watch was gone. Searched everything, couldn't find it. Texted my husband, he was waking up later. He replied, "What are you talking about? The watch is right there on your bedside table," and sends me a photo. Yep, exactly where I had left them the night before. My husband lost a hat. Searched everywhere, nothing. A month later, there appeared to be 2 hats exactly like the ones he had lost. He thought I bought new ones, which I didn't. Had my wallet in my jacket pocket, including my travel card. Get to the station and the wallet is gone. I am panicking, turn my pockets inside out, and they are empty. I look through my handbag, but I can't find it. Thinking, oh no, WTF now. Put my hand back in my jacket pocket and the wallet is right there. And it's not the size of a peanut that I would miss. Here I'm going to include my brother's story because I find it very peculiar, and he is very skeptical and makes me laugh as he is so puzzled by it, and thought he was going nuts. He is a guitarist, and they have a practice and rehearsal room with the band. He went there alone one Sunday to play some riffs, and they keep the guitar straps with a few other things in this big black leather box which has a lock on it. He unlocks it, gets the strap out, closes the box, puts the strap on the chair, and goes to get his guitar, which is in the other corner of the room. Gets back and the strap is gone. He looks for it, but then he's like, am I going nuts? Did I take it out? Unlocks the box and it's there. So he's like, WTF, doesn't pay too much attention to it. Takes it out, puts it on the chair, again, and this time goes to turn the amplifiers on. Gets back and the strap is gone, again. so he really thinks he's losing it at this point. Unlocks the box again, and the strap is inside. He even called my mum as he thought he was going proper bonkers. And the other one is even better. He's a bit of a nerd and spends a lot of time on the PC. And this time he was exchanging the PC cooler system. He bought 2 cables. One end of the cable had 2 pins to go in the PC, and the other end had a socket. He tested it before the demolition. I mean, before he disassembled the PC, and it fit perfectly, and so he proceeded. About 4 or 5 hours later, when he put it all back together with the new cooler, etc., and wanted to plug the cables in, the end with the 2 pins had changed to a socket, so now he had a cable with 2 sockets on both ends. He was so dumbfounded that he even called me, saying what in the actual fuck is going on here. And the other cable had changed too. Both of them had 2 sockets on each end. Complete nonsense. So these are the parallel jumps that we make in between realities. And sometimes they can be complete and utter nuttiness. 10. I really don't know where to start with this. I'm going to try to give every single detail I remember. It happened this morning, so it's not like it was that long ago. I've been looking up things online basically all day, trying to find some sort of solution to this. But I really, truly feel that I'm losing my mind. I can't find anything, and believe me, I've looked. The closest thing I could find was a link to a post from like 3 years ago, on Reddit, that really had nothing to do with my problem. But I'm gonna tell the story here in the hopes that someone can tell me what the hell happened. I don't really have a history of any prior mental health issues. I had ADHD as a kid and went through a small cycle of depression years back. But that's about it. I've always been a late riser. This whole corona situation has me working from home, so that allows me basically a sleep schedule of my choosing. When I woke up this morning, it was probably closer to noon, the family wasn't home. This isn't strange, as most of the time the old lady and kids are off doing their own thing by the time I wake up. But when I went to go make a bagel, I saw that the back door was open. I thought maybe she had taken the kids out back to play, so I went to look, but nobody was there. I kinda scoffed at her under my breath for leaving the door open. The bugs are pretty bad. And closed it. But immediately after turning around after closing the door, I saw that across the living room the front door was open too. I could see through the wide open front door that both cars were in the driveway, so I went to go see if they were out front. Nope. This made me a bit nervous as both cars were in the driveway, and both doors were left wide open. I started assuming the worst. Across the street I saw our neighbor's front door open as well. We are very close with our neighbors. The dad is a childhood friend of mine, and the kids have known each other since they were born pretty much. So I just walked over and went in the front door, thinking my family was probably over there. Nope, not a damn trace. Obviously at this point I start getting panicked. I couldn't find my family. All my doors were open, and my neighbor's house was in the same exact state. All of their cars were parked as well. I went to walk back across the street to get my phone, and I noticed the house next to mine had their front door wide open too. And the one on the house on the other side. This is when I lost my shit. I felt like I was in a goddamn horror movie or something. I looked down the street and every single front door I could see was open, and not a damn soul could be found. I went back inside into my room to get my phone that was charging from the night prior. And as soon as I pull it off the charger and unlock it, I hear the front door open and my wife and kids' muffled voices. I sprint to the kitchen and find my wife with bags of groceries in her hands. She just tells me to help her unload them. I ask her where the hell her and the kids have been, and how they even went anywhere without taking one of the cars. She looks at me like I'm stupid. Tells me she took her car and she's been gone for like an hour. I explain to her the entire story, and she still looks at me like I'm stupid. Asks me if I'm sure it wasn't a dream. I am positive I was not dreaming. Absolutely positive. She tells me she believes me and we can look into it, but I could tell she really didn't. Who can blame her? Typing all this and going back to read it? I sound like a fucking lunatic. But I don't know where else to tell this story or anyone else who will really listen to me. I think I'm going crazy. I spoke to my buddy across the street as well, and he said he and the family have been home all day. But there was clearly nobody there when I went to look for mine. "11. I'd like to preface this by saying my husband is an electrical engineer and I'm a teacher. We're not crazy people. So, back when my husband and I were dating, my husband was in a terrible car crash. His truck hit black ice, and he slid into oncoming traffic. His truck was completely totaled, so was the other truck he hit. The weird thing is, though, both he and the other guy were completely fine. Not a scratch on them. All my husband had was a bruise on his knee. The first responders were baffled, as was the towing company and insurance when they realized no one had died or was severely injured. Fast forward to a few days after the crash. My husband comes over to my apartment. We're having a conversation about a university class we're both in, and he casually asks where I got the flat-screen TV sitting on my dresser. At this point, I'm very confused because I've had the little flat screen since I was 13, and had it the entire year and a bit we'd been dating. I asked him what he's talking about, as I've always had that TV. He told me to quit pulling his leg, and asked me what I did with the old tube TV. I have no idea what he was talking about and told him so. He's convinced I had a tube TV. I proceeded to get on Facebook and showed him a picture we had taken 2 weeks prior with the TV in the background. It's a flat screen in the picture. My husband goes white, like he's seen a ghost, and just stares into space for a minute. His eyes started to water. I asked him what's wrong, and he said, "Swear to God, I'm not crazy. You've had a tube TV since we started dating. It was a tube TV when we took that picture." I brushed it off as his head being rattled from the accident, and we didn't bring it up again. However, any time we hung out in my room, he'd always look at the TV weird. Fast forward 7 years. My husband and I had been married for a few years and decided we're ready to be parents. I'm not on birth control, and we decide whatever happens, happens. We're not actively trying, but not preventing it either. So we're on vacation in Italy, wandering around Rome, and I feel like shit. I had had my period the week before, and it was the worst one I'd had in my whole life. As we're walking around, I'm suffering from back pain, chills, and horrific cramping. I go to the bathroom in a cafe and hurl my guts out, have diarrhea, and realize I'm menstruating. Heavy. Obviously, I'm weirded out since I've just had my period the week before. I clean myself up, go back to my husband, and tell him I think I need a doctor. I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but this is insane. It's getting to the point I'm having trouble walking, and I'm starting to feel pain in my shoulders. I don't want to ruin our vacation, but I'm starting to really worry. My husband is smarter than me, sees the state I'm in, and says I'm visibly paler than when I went into the bathroom, and gets me help. 20 minutes later, I'm on a stretcher and being taken to the hospital. An hour later, I'm being prepped for emergency surgery, as the doctor tells me I have a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I have heavy internal bleeding, and if he doesn't perform surgery, I'm going to die. 6 hours later, I wake up, very sore and tired. Doctor tells me I'm very lucky, and if I had waited any longer to seek medical attention, I'd be dead. Husband stays with me in the hospital the first night, then gets a hotel for the rest of my stay. A week later, we're cleared to fly home, and I go through a grueling month of healing from the surgery. 2 months after our return, somehow my husband and I get on the topic of fires, and he goes on about the dangers of kitchen fires, and I say, "No need to worry, we're all set with the extinguisher in the closet." He looks at me like I have 3 heads and asks me what I'm talking about. I remind him about the extinguisher in the front closet where we keep the coats. We've had it for 3 years. He insisted we buy one when we bought our house. My husband shakes his head and tells me he has no idea what I'm talking about, and we don't have a fire extinguisher. I remind him about not only my memories of fighting if we really needed one, where to put it, buying it from Home Depot, but also installing it in the wall in the closet. He looks at me with confusion and tells me none of that happened. I get up, go to the front closet to show it to him, all the while cursing him for being an asshole, for forgetting our 2-week fight about it, and lo and behold, no extinguisher. Not only is there no extinguisher, there's no holes in the wall where I know we installed it. No fresh paint. This wall has never been touched. I insist he's moved it and fixed the wall, and ask why he would play such a stupid prank. He continues to insist we've never had one, let alone talked about getting one. This goes on for several minutes. I'm approaching hysterics, telling him to quit playing with me when he finally says, "Now you know how I feel about that TV." We didn't speak about it for a long time. Then after I found the Glitch in the Matrix subreddit, I brought up his theory that perhaps in another timeline, dimension, whatever you want to call it, we both actually died and were reset like a video game, and the TV and fire extinguisher are glitches. I don't know if I agree with him. All I know is that I have never been so rattled in my whole life. And every time I get something out of the closet, I'm overwhelmed with this feeling of wrongness. I know it should be there, but somehow it's just not. I can't explain it. He says he will go to his grave swearing I had a tube TV. 12. This happened about 4 years ago. We were living in a rental house with a moderate amount of odd activity, but here's the biggest. One morning, we were getting ready for the day. I was in one of our upstairs bathrooms, and directly on the other side of that bathroom's wall was the master bathroom. To save on frustration, my husband used the master and I took the other. It was about 8 a.m., just before my husband leaves for work, and I remembered there was something I needed to tell him. I could hear him moving around in the master bath. He sounded like he was in a rush, putting things down harder than usual, drawers slamming, general frantic and quick noises. It was loud enough that there was no mistaking what the noise was or where it was coming from. I decided it wasn't too important and could wait. I left the bathroom, still hearing the noises, and went downstairs. I rounded the corner into the kitchen and walked right into my husband getting something out of the fridge. My husband and mother-in-law were the only other adults in the house, also an infant in the house, still in his crib. My mother-in-law had been sitting beyond my husband at the kitchen table. There was no other way upstairs but where I had just been. The noise upstairs had stopped. I decided not to say anything, as I knew no one could have broken in, as there is no way of getting upstairs without being seen by one of the three of us. 10 minutes later, my mother-in-law went upstairs to use the bathroom I had been in. My husband left for work, and I was making breakfast. Mother-in-law was there for a few minutes, and then left the bathroom and went downstairs. Exact same situation. She turned the corner and walked into me as I was in the fridge. She got very wide-eyed and said she had just left the bathroom, looked over and seen me sitting on my bed upstairs, playing on my cell phone, located just outside the bathroom, approximately 5 to 10 feet away. From what I can conclude, we had some sort of dimensional slip in the upstairs that morning. 13. This happened 2 weeks ago. I work at a company that sells bullet reloading equipment and gun accessories. It is a 2-story building where upstairs are offices and cubicles for sales, media, HR, and other departments, more suited to general office work. Downstairs is production, building machines, warehouse, and shipping. The retail store and break room are also downstairs. I typically start my day in the upstairs offices, sorting emails, entering customer data, routing calls in the switchboard, and other office tasks. I'm more of a secondary helper for all that, so once they have nothing left for me to work on, I go downstairs to production. As you can imagine, with the state of things lately, we've been slammed with orders the past month, so they always need the extra hands. Normally they give me the kind of tasks that involve just bagging small parts, putting together kits and such. All the smaller portions that the larger orders need help, or to help those building the machines have parts they need to complete the job. 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday afternoon, I was down in production working away on bagging and tagging a variety of small parts. I had my Bluetooth headset in, just for one ear, so at least one ear is open, listening to some chill hop and chill wave type stuff, so I can zone out and work. I was sat at one of the workbenches with a small aisle way behind me, rows of workbenches beyond that, workbenches at either side of me, a workbench in front of me, and windows to the employee parking, busy road, and a major freeway obstructed by a berm in front of me. Everyone was working away. We had all just had lunch. There was constant noise and movement. Then suddenly there wasn't. I glanced around and saw no one. Workbenches and aisles were cleared and cleaned like everyone left for the end of the day. I've been known to zone out into my task and music and miss the start of break until someone got my attention, but nothing like this. All the lights were off except for the few usually left on, so security can see at night. I looked to the windows in front of me, very confused. It was still light out, like it was mid-afternoon. However, the employee parking lot, now that I think about it, I don't even think I saw my car, but that wasn't my focus at the time. And the busy street beyond were empty. I don't know if the freeway was empty because of the berm blocking my view. I looked at 3 separate clocks hung around the area, and they all said it was 4:07 p.m. But last I looked, it was about 1:30 p.m., and we were all off at either 3:30 or 6 p.m., depending on when the person started in the morning hours. I went to grab my phone, which had been playing my music, and I couldn't find it. My desk was untouched otherwise, with all my little objects spread out. My earpiece was still in my left ear, but turned off. There was hardly a noise anywhere in the building, like it was shut up for the day, no machines running, no people talking or moving around, no phones ringing, no music from random shop radios. Nothing. Just the faint buzz of the lights and random creaks and cracks of a settling building. I was getting really freaked out and feeling like I shouldn't be there. Like I would get in trouble if a security guard found me there. This was only roughly 2 minutes into my experience. I tried looking for my phone again to see if I dropped it or it was buried under something on the worktop, but nothing. My Bluetooth earpiece wouldn't even turn on. I was beginning to get really freaked out. Every time I was going to call out hello, just to see if someone answered, I felt too afraid to. Like I shouldn't. The break room is accessible via the shop area and several workbenches down from me, so I went there. No one there either, and no noises. I started thinking maybe I should just leave. I went back through the door to the shop and nearly jumped out of my skin because it was all back to normal. Everyone was there working, and it was loud like before. I glanced behind me in the break room, and a few people who had most certainly not been there a moment before were sitting eating. What gets me is the door has a large window in it too. Going to the door, I could still see the lights were off, and no one was there through the window. Hence why I startled so hard when people and noise were there after I opened it. One of the guys working nearest the door asked me if I was okay. I didn't know how to answer him or if I should tell him. I ended up blowing it off as forgetting something as soon as you walk through a door, coupled with thinking I was going to run into someone. I went back to my desk, trying to work out if this had been a prank of some kind. My phone was back on my desk, exactly where I had left it. However, I had to manually power on, not just reconnect my Bluetooth earpiece. I could understand if the Bluetooth disconnected walking far enough away from the source, my phone, but not power off because it wasn't anywhere near low on battery. I know I wasn't asleep. I know I didn't nod off. I have never in my life sleepwalked either. So I really don't think I dreamed it so vividly to think it's real. Got up, walked to the break room, then woke up walking back to the shop. I really don't think it was a prank because both it happening and ending were so abrupt. This whole event took 5 minutes in total. I don't know what happened. I've gotten that I shouldn't be here feeling several times in my life before, but not during such an event. I've never had an event like this happen to me, to my knowledge. What do you think? 14. Okay, so this happened many years ago. My then partner had parents living in Scarborough, England, in which we would visit quite often. Because I wasn't from there, when we did visit, we would go sightseeing because there's a lot of history in that area. His father was high up in the local council and had quite a lot of local knowledge, so he knew good places to visit. On one visit, they asked if we wanted to go to Ravenscar, which is 10 miles north of Scarborough. And that's quite the backstory. Originally, it used to be the Roman signal station. In more modern times, 1890, it was owned by a company or family who wanted to turn the area into another holiday resort like Scarborough. They laid down all the roads, drains, etc., and then went bankrupt, leaving it as a ghost town, which is now a tourist spot with only a hotel and golf course left. So, his parents drove my partner and I there one afternoon. It was cool because as we drive through the area, we could see the roads and marked out areas for buildings. There were pavements and drains, and all in all, it was pretty eerie to see just abandoned. And it looked like it had only just been abandoned. We got out and walked around, and it fascinated us both. About 3 years later, we revisited with my 2 children. They were excited because we told them we'd take them to Ravenscar and have a walk around the ghost town. This time my partner drove there, and when we arrived we were confused, as we couldn't find the entrance where we remembered it. It was very obvious last time. We drove around for just a bit, seeing fields and nothing more. I couldn't find it, so we went to the Tourist Information Center, and we were shocked to find out we were in the right place all along. We explained to the lady what we saw 3 years ago was very, very different to what was there now. She looked at us like we were insane, and told us it had never been like we explained. Anyway, we walked around the site, and there was pretty much nothing but grass. The odd drain cover, but absolutely nothing that resembled what we both saw previously. By now, the kids also thought we were insane. We had described something that didn't exist. My partner and I were both confused, and after returning to his parents' house, we asked them what they saw, and they also looked at us like we were insane. So it seems that something odd happened that day. Both my partner and I saw something very different to what was actually there, and to this day I still can't explain it. 15. So this happened when I was around 19. My friend and I were having a sleepover. We were going to bed. All lights out around midnight when we started to have a random but very deep conversation about things in our world not making sense. Essentially, about everyday glitches. All I can remember is how it started, which had something to do with how it's strange that our consciousness essentially just shuts off while we sleep, and we don't retain any information around us while sleeping. Not a groundbreaking thought, pretty dumb, but that's how it began. No drugs involved, by the way. For a solid hour, our conversation ramped up. We were spitting out ideas and plot holes in our world, which made us consistently stop to say, "Holy shit," whenever we thought of something else. I want to add, trying to explain this in a way that doesn't sound like 2 dumb teens being like, "Holy shit, bro, is the sky really blue?" It's very hard, but I want to stress these were revelations about things that I still have not come to since. I remember feeling we cracked the code, and I wanted to write everything down. Now to set the scene. I live in a ranch-style house in the country. My room is on the bottom level, where I have the classic small basement window right above the ground. There's a hill above my window, and light never comes through it at night. No road in front of there, streetlights, neighboring house, nothing. Out of nowhere, a bright light starts shining directly into my room, lighting up what was just complete darkness. It was as if a car was directly outside my window with their brights on. Immediately, our talking ceased, and we were scared to move. There was something so unsettling about it, given the conversation we were just having. The light kept shining, and we got so scared we got on our phones to kind of shake us out of the reality we were in. After a minute, the light went away. It didn't turn off, but dissipated slowly, getting dimmer and dimmer until gone. Freaked out. We were scared to resume our conversation, but we realized that we had entirely forgotten it. I still have no idea what we said. We felt like we talked about things we shouldn't know. As silly as it sounds, I'm honestly still apprehensive about telling this story. 16. To preface this, I have tried looking this up using every possible phrase I could come up with to describe it. And I've yet to find anything similar. So I'm wondering if others have had similar experiences. This happened a while ago, so I'm missing some small details about what was said and what clothing was being worn, etc. But in my opinion, those details are not important. I was at my parents' house watching television in the living room. The living room is small with an attached kitchen, and then a narrow hallway leading to all bedrooms at the back of the house. I was currently alone in the house, and my mother was on her way home from the grocery store. I was sitting there, watching TV, and I heard her car pull into the driveway. Her car isn't very quiet, and I know the sound of her car well. I proceeded to get up and unlock the door for her, and then sat back down. I heard her walk up the steps and open the door, and she was carrying a bunch of bags full of groceries. So I got up, closed the door behind her, and took some of the bags from her, and set them on the ground. We said a few words to each other that I can't remember, but we did talk briefly. She then set the rest of the bags she had down, and said she had to go to the bathroom. I was standing in front of her as she said this, and she put her hand on my shoulder and scooted past me. I heard her walk down the hall, and I heard the bathroom door shut and lock. Then, as soon as I turned around to face the front door, my mother, who just literally 2 seconds ago walked down the hall into the bathroom, walked through the front door with grocery bags in her hands and took them into the kitchen. I immediately walked down the hall and looked at the bathroom, and the door was open with no one in there. I went back into the kitchen and asked her if she just went to the bathroom, and she said no. That was in the morning. Later that same day, I went to work. I work at a bookstore. About half an hour after I clocked in, I was walking around the floor looking to see if any of the shelves needed to be straightened up. In one aisle I walked down, I had to pass by a co-worker that was crouched on the floor with a book cart stocking the shelves. When I walked past him, I had to shimmy past the cart, and I said, "Excuse me," and he said, "I'm sorry," and moved the cart. I then walked clear to the other side of the store. The store is divided by a huge brick wall with 2 entrances to the other side of the store, so I would have seen everyone that walked in or out of the other side of the store. I got to the other side of the brick wall that separates the sides within a few seconds, and I immediately saw that same co-worker crouched on the floor with a cart, stocking the shelves. Just seconds after, I saw him on the first side of the store. There was no way he could have walked past me without me seeing him. I immediately turned around and walked back to the side of the store into the aisle where I first saw him, and he wasn't there. I checked the time to see if I had had some sort of slip-up or something, but the time made sense and nothing was out of place as far as time went. If these are just hallucinations, I don't understand being able to communicate with them and touch them. I've had weird things happen, but not in the same vein. I just want to know if anyone else has any theory or information as to what that could have been. I don't have a history of mental illness. I have one biological aunt on my mother's side that is severely bipolar. I have had hallucinations in the past, but most had been silhouettes of objects or animals. I've had hallucinations of family members walking around the house when they were actually sleeping the whole time, etc. But I have also had moments where I knew exactly what someone was going to say before they said it, or a stranger looking for a shirt used to work in retail, and me knowing they're looking for a work shirt for the place I know they just got hired at, all without them telling me. I also had a boyfriend that moved out of state, and any time before he would travel, I would get a nosebleed and text him saying if he was traveling, without me knowing he was. And I have dreams that people I haven't talked to in many years text me, and in the morning after waking up I'll receive a text from that person. Sorry for the word vomit. 17. First, I want to start off by saying this is going to sound absolutely insane, and maybe I'm just making it all up in my head, and I'm some kind of psychopath. Maybe I'm trying to justify changes that are coming my way with some crazy theory. But whatever it is, I need to talk about it. There's just so much that doesn't make sense right now. A lot of things have been happening in my life for the past few weeks, and not once did I consider the possibility of this being an alternate reality. until I came upon a video that talked about different realities yesterday, and it sounded scarily familiar. Though I brushed it off, before looking into other people's posts and finding myself in them. It all started a few weeks ago. I was feeling really sick. I was running a fever and starting to show symptoms of sickness, and then, one by one, I started getting really weird dreams. They weren't particularly tied to a different reality, just really out of the ordinary for me. I was seeing people from my past, and then the dream suddenly stopped. Nothing weird, my symptoms were gone. I felt healthy again. I just assumed I got lucky and fought it off in a few nights. First, my friends were off. They were acting differently than usual, their personalities seemed somewhat different, and their opinions on certain matters changed. I brushed it off once again. People just simply changing their minds and personalities is much more reasonable, and the first thing you'd think of. Not a reality switch. Little things began changing, people were acting different. The overall vibe was different. Now, here's the thing. I remember clearly that we were in a bad financial situation for a while. We had to cut back on luxuries and save up because my dad was working with a new firm. Recently, it had only gotten worse. But then after that whole sickness and the dreams, it seemed to have changed. Before, I would mention getting a laptop, and it seemed impossible, so I planned to work myself when I find the time between studies and get it. But now we bought a brand new high-end laptop and so much stuff for our home, and we were just suddenly in a good situation. We aren't struggling anymore, and when I talked about it, my parents just went, "But we were never in a bad situation." And I was like, what? And then, I was dating my partner. And out of nowhere, they changed a lot. Their whole personality and the way we communicated and bonded changed. Fights became more frequent, and then someone from the past came up. This person claimed that I flirted with them, and that we even talked about some kind of attraction. But weirdly, I genuinely don't remember being anything more than good buddies with them. I don't recall a conversation like that. My partner and I ended up breaking up. Series that I watched, I rewatched, and certain things seemed different than I remember. Like there's a good similarity, but there's just things that are so different. Or certain things that I know were placed in a certain part of the house, that are now somewhere completely different. When I asked if somebody moved it, the answer was, it was always there, but I know it wasn't. Now I'm genuinely wondering, am I going crazy, or is my life simply changing and my memories with it? Or is this real? Did I die that night and switch realities? There's so much more weird stuff. I've been feeling weirdly homesick for no reason at all. Like just feel anxious and homesick, missing home, but I am home. I probably sound nuts. What do you think of this? 18. My friends and family have spotted my doppelganger 3 times in my life. First time, I was 12 years old. My dad and sister were at the bottom of the stairs talking. My doppelganger walked down the stairs and right past them to go hang up washing in the garden. Just moments later, I came down the stairs, and from the stairs, you can see the garden, so my family could see me on the stairs and in the garden at the exact same time. But I couldn't see anyone in the garden. Second time I was 15. My niece saw my doppelganger ironing in a room in my house, as she walked past and came downstairs and saw I was sat in front of the TV in the living room. I had a completely different outfit on to the doppelganger. Third time happened just yesterday. I'm now 23. I am a key worker, so I still have to go to work. I finished at 6 p.m. just before I finished my shift at 17:50. I uploaded a video to my Snapchat story showing everyone I was at work, getting ready to end my shift, and I messaged my sisters on our group chat as they posted a picture, so I replied saying it looked nice. I also video called a friend, and she saw I was in the office at the time. I came home and my mother and big sister asked me where I'd been, as they were so worried because I'd left so abruptly. I told them I had been at work and just came home now. I thought they thought I didn't really go to work, so I showed them the Snapchat videos of me at work with the timestamp on it, and my work rota, and offered to call my manager to confirm it. But they started panicking because at the time when I had messaged my sisters on the group chat, I apparently knocked on the front door just moments later, and my little sister opened the door. I was apparently dressed in my favorite yellow hoodie and had my hair down with makeup on. And I walked into the house, spoke to my two sisters and the tenant in our house, how I normally do, and even joked with them, and they asked me if I wanted ice cream, and I said yes. But first, I'll go get changed. So then I went into my room and never came out again. When my sister went to check on me and give me the ice cream, they noticed I vanished, and they kept calling out to me, but I was no longer in the house. When they told me this, I was horrified, because that wasn't me, and I had been at work the whole time this encounter took place, and had photo and video evidence. Also, the doppelganger was dressed in my clothes and spoke exactly like me, but I was actually wearing my work uniform that day and had my hair up for work, as I work for health services. But the doppelganger had her hair down and wearing my favorite hoodie. Last night, I was so scared because this was the first time that the doppelganger had actually spoken. People previously had only seen it but not interacted with it. I barely slept, because now I'm paranoid that it could be a doppelganger or a glitch in the Matrix. 19. When I was a nursing student, we had return demonstration classrooms. The layout of those classrooms is quite different from the regular ones, since they were rooms to observe procedures. The seats were arranged to face the center one on the side wall between two doors. There were only 4 classrooms of that type in our school, and they were locked when not used, because they have medical equipment inside. Normally, those rooms will only be used when an instructor would teach us new procedures, and we would be in our nursing uniform, but sometimes they are used as lecture rooms. One afternoon, when we were having a class in one of those rooms, we were wearing our school uniform since it was just a regular class. One of the doors suddenly opened. Everyone looked at it because of the noise outside. No one saw who opened it, and nobody was waiting outside the door, so my classmate just closed it. We thought that a student might have peeked and left afterwards. After the class ended, our instructor, OI, went to the teacher's lounge. She was approached by another instructor, AI, and was told that she has given her the wrong room number. I do not really know the details, but AI might have needed something from OI. AI said when she opened the room we were having our lecture, she saw a different instructor whom she had never seen before, and the students were wearing nursing uniforms. They were standing and were crowded in the center, observing the procedure their instructor was doing. No one seemed to notice her opening the door. AI thought that OI might have given her the wrong room, so she closed the door and tried other classrooms, but all of them were locked. My classmate who was nearest to that door swore it was not the wind that opened it, as he heard the doorknob turn before it opened. It was also rumored that the area was haunted, and the ghost might have played tricks on AI, but that was before the knowledge of parallel universes and other dimensions came into popular culture. AI also said that the nursing uniforms appear to have had an older design. She also never saw the instructor again, which is strange, because our school was small and all nursing instructors knew each other. 20. This happened about a week ago. I'm currently spending a lot of time at my boyfriend's house during shelter in place. He lives at the end of a dirt road, kind of out in the woods. His road is part of a larger system that creates a big loop. 2 roads eventually lead into one from the main strip. If that makes sense. Walking this loop takes about 45 to 50 minutes. I have walked this loop many times, and I've always gotten back to his place in about 45 to 50 minutes. Unless you're sprinting or have an unusually quick pace, there's no way to walk it in any shorter amount of time. The other day I started out and passed his mailbox, passed the main road, made it to the other side of the loop, and past the white house on that side. Then suddenly I'm back at his mailbox again. This is the glitch. From the White House back to his mailbox should take at least 20 minutes, and I had done it in what felt like 2. More mysterious is I couldn't remember walking the big chunk between his house and his mailbox. It was as if I had passed through a glitch in time, or I had been suddenly transported between spaces. I racked my brain trying to remember if I had passed a couple of the streets that were between the house and the mailbox. But I just couldn't remember walking that portion at all. There was no other way to get to the mailbox, no side trails, no shortcuts. I stayed on the main loop. Now originally, when I saw the mailbox come up so soon, I was very surprised, but I just thought that maybe I had lost track of time, or was just lost in my head and hadn't been paying attention to my walk as much. I tried just brushing it off, that maybe it just felt like 2 minutes, but that I had definitely walked the 20 and had a lapse in time judgment. Needless to say, I was still very much weirded out, especially because I made it back so quickly and seemed to have been propelled by this one area of the walk. I would have brushed this all off as just me being absent-minded until I got back home. I came over to my boyfriend and said I was back, and he asked, "Thought you were going out for a walk. You haven't been gone that long." Turns out I was only gone for about 20 minutes. I swore to him up and down that I did the entire loop, and that I had lost track of part of the loop, as though I was transported. Of course, I don't think he was convinced. He said maybe I just walked to the mailbox and back, but I didn't. I had definitely made it to the other side of the loop and past all the usual stuff. I've done that walk numerous times, and nothing like this has happened since. I know I can't convince my boyfriend of what happened, as it sounds nuts. But I know I walked the whole loop. I was going my usual pace. I wasn't speed walking or running at any point. I didn't turn around at any point, and nothing out of the ordinary happened until that one particular spot. I will also mention that my boyfriend lives in an area with a lot of UFO and alien sightings and whatnot. I am not projecting any of that. It's just an interesting tidbit I thought I would share. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Glitch Monthly, number 9. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Now, before we go on, I'd like to give a little shout out to Reddit user Eli Mack, the author of the nursing story there. Thank you very kindly for letting me use your story, Eli. Right, relaxy times. Well, not quite relaxy times. Lots of editing ahead of me. I have the big old glitch video and a paranormal video to make, which you guys will see after you see this one. If you watch both. If you don't watch both, then you won't see it. So this whole part of the conversation is quite irrelevant. But it's there if you want to watch it. I'm rambling. Enough of that. Dogs. Oh, good. Right. I think the dogs are learning. I just started recording again. They started barking right after I was recording. Then I hit the record button to do the outro, and they've hushed up again. I think they're learning. Okay, good. Maybe they're fans. Maybe they watch the channel. Do dogs have Wi-Fi? I'm not sure. I suppose if they're chipped, they might have Wi-Fi. Yeah, dogs have Wi-Fi. Glad we settled that. Okay, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.